Hi, welcome to Facts at 5. I am Michael Clark. It is Friday, May the 1st, 2020. And, we should do something a little bit different today, you think? It's the end of the week.
Sure, let's do it.
First let's hit on a couple of the stats. No, I want to hear you say
Stats.
Stats. Go ahead. Well, let's hit on some of the key stats and a few of the tough items and top items, and then we'll maybe play around a little.
So we have today, Friday, March 1st, from this morning, we have 33,988 confirmed coronavirus cases in Suffolk County, around 177 in East Hampton, which I think is roughly the same as yesterday, but I don't quite remember, and 249 in Southampton. I think that's right. It looks weird to me.
Well, it's about the same.
It's a little bit up for
in
sure.
the town of East Hampton,
right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit up for sure. So, but as we've been talking about, we don't really know what this means,
right?
And we're going to have to rely on our government and our leaders to tell us what this means because we don't have the proper testing.
Or to tell us what they think it means.
Right.
That's one of the joys. So a couple of key points. Cuomo announced today that school is definitely out for the school year. I think we could all see that coming.
Right.
The Regents was canceled. Everything was canceled. But for the town of East Hampton, as we reported yesterday, they're still going to be having a graduation ceremony and things, and more details to follow on that. And something else that was also canceled, we were notified today that the East Hampton Little League has canceled its season after much deliberation. They have canceled it for the spring. There is the potential, however, of having a fall league, which would be really good for the kids if they're able to pull that together, but it all depends.
Boys of fall.
The boys of fall. Right. But I think one of the big things, and you used the term yesterday, I don't know if you made it up, and if you didn't, it's still a great term, the age of misinformation.
I did not make it up.
Okay. You should have taken credit for it.
I thought of it, and then I looked it up, and somebody already called a book that.
Okay.
But it feels like the misinformation age.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday, that, going to social media and relying on social media for all your news and stuff like that, and it led you to, looking into it even a little bit more. And so why don't you tell us about what's going on, and especially what happened in Iraq just recently.
Well,
kind of lead into that, I think.
What's happening, as we all know, is that if you go on any social media, and I think what we've been working on really hard here is the facts.
Right.
And Cuomo said it yesterday, using the guy from Dragnet, just the facts. Like, this is what we need. We need just the facts. And we spend a lot of time making sure that we're getting the facts.
Right.
But it is because what's happening is that is not what's happening in the world. And so I think we as producers wanted to make this a little bit of an oasis, and we always want to be checked by anybody if they have another thought or corrected. But the idea of digital literacy and fact checking. So as of April, on April 15th, the Washington Post reported that there are so many coronavirus myths that fact-checking websites literally can't keep up.
Wow.
And one of the, you might think this is banal. Oh, who cares? Or benign. It doesn't matter. These are just rumors. But it's actually deadly.
Yeah.
So at the end of March, nearly 300 people in Iran were killed after drinking a toxic chemical in the mistaken belief that it would save them from the coronavirus. Completely false belief, completely awful thing. News of the fake cure has reportedly spread like wildfire across social media. Iranian media report nearly 300 people have been killed and more than 1,000 sickened by drinking methanol. And the AP reported that one case of a 5-year-old boy who was blinded.
Wow.
I mean, this is a lifelong injury sustained by this little boy, and 500 people dead, and who knows about the other lifelong injuries for the 1,000 people. I mean, it is no joke.
Right.
Some of these myths, though, can seem a little bit like a joke. I mean, it's so hard, and I think everybody's feeling this. I've been hearing this from my friends, and I know that you've been hearing it, and we've been feeling it here. How do you tell what the truth is?
Right.
It is not easy, and it takes a little bit of digging.
Okay.
So what we've done is I've gotten together some fact-checking some fact-checking sites, put them on the crawl at the end. Because you should check those sites.
Well, how do we know they're right?
That's another thing. You have to, if you go to, say, like a site like Snopes, you can see who's involved in it. Moreover, they always, in their myth-busting section, will show you where they got the information.
Okay.
So you can go and check that.
They give the sources, so then you need to check even further if you really want the truth.
If you really want the truth. And this is, in the business, is called primary source documentation. So you usually want to be able, that's the gold standard. You want to be able to go and find who said it first.
Right.
And then from there, work your way back. Usually what we do here is if several people are reporting something, we'll consider it to be understood that that's true. But we have held stories back here because we only saw it in one source.
Sure.
Which
I think that's what most newspapers do as well, right?
Absolutely.
Multiple sources, they don't usually
or
use
it has to be confirmed by more than one source at least, especially something really important. So do you want to go over some of the
Sure.
the myths?
Some of the myths? Okay, so the COVID virus was stolen out of a Canadian lab by Chinese spies.
Okay. This one has multiple sources saying that this is not the case, but I actually don't have them written right here.
Okay.
But that is something that you should check, because that is something that a lot of people are saying. And there is, and you just need to look it up. At least knowing that it's a possibility that it's not true is the first step. And I guess I'm a suspicious person by nature.
Right. You don't believe what's on social media?
No.
You don't believe?
I mean, I've fallen for things because you want to.
I do too.
You fall because you're like, I thought that was the case, and you believe it.
Johnny said it.
Yeah,
it must be true.
and I want to believe it because whatever, but you have to check.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So the COVID-19 pandemic was predicted in a simulation.
Okay. So that is, and this is all from I can't remember what it is right now. But that says the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and the Gates Foundation did host a pandemic preparedness exercise called Event 201 in October 2019. However, the scenario used in the exercise involved a fictional coronavirus with different characteristics. For example, in this simulation, the virus originated on pig farms in Brazil, not in China. How the host emerged was the earliest example of this claim, and this is what the websites do. They look for where it started,
right,
and then they go from there. The earliest example of this claim was on January 22nd, 2020, posted on Reddit's conspiracy subreddit channel, referencing October 2019 news articles about the simulation, along with more recent articles about the outbreak in China. Then it was more widely circulated in the far, far, far right InfoWars.
Okay.
So what's interesting, and I think this is what you see over and over again, is there's a tiny bit of truth.
Yeah. Well, it's like playing post office, right? What's said at the beginning is completely different than what's said at the end, and it evolves along the way. And
the more that a lie can have a tiny kernel of truth, the more believable it is.
Right.
So if you're gonna say, total myth, I'm making this up right now, it's sort of gleaned from this, that Bill Gates is responsible for the coronavirus. He's engineering it so that eventually he'll be able to put a microchip in your bloodstream.
Sounds true.
Oh, it totally sounds true. But so, the little bit of truth is that Bill Gates and Melinda Gates have a huge foundation dedicated to studying pandemics.
Okay.
So then you start from there, and you sort of go out from there. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is that there's a little kernel of truth about Wuhan, China. So Wuhan, China, we think of it, we Americans, are like a village. There's 11 million people.
Yeah, it's a huge, beautiful city.
Huge, beautiful city. But so everyone knows about the wet markets, where they think it started, and the documentation is showing that it's 99% bat DNA, whatever. But regardless, you should look at that for yourself. Within, very close, there are infectious disease labs.
Right.
So now there's this beginning of the thought that because of those labs, they have let this virus loose on the world, and there's a bio weapon, et cetera. You can see how, and you know what? Maybe it is. but you got to research it, and you got to see that probably just having the proximity is not causality. It's not what it's going to be.
It's not been proven.
And it's not been proven at all.
Yeah.
So everything's conjecture right now.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about conjecture at 5. We don't have conjecture at 5.
I think it's a cell phone.
Oh, you think it's the 5G cell phone?
The 5G, yeah.
Okay.
So that can't be true?
Yeah, I don't, oh yeah, so that host, so where is it? Oh, there is no evidence that the health effects of the COVID-19 virus are related to 5G.
Oh.
A March, Dr. Simon Clark, with an E, sorry, a microbiology professor at the University of Reading, describes claims that 5G either transmits the virus or suppresses the immune system, thus making people more vulnerable to it, as complete rubbish. A March 2020 report from the Internal Commission of Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection found no evidence that 5G networks posed a threat to human health.
See, now it's, that's confirmed by Clark, so it must be true.
Well,
Yet another rumor.
still, you got to check.
Okay.
So what they do is there is the earliest mentioned Newsguard, this is what it is, Newsguard, could find tying 5G to the new coronavirus was an January 20th article in the red-rated anonymously run French conspiracy theory blog Les Moutons Érangés, which I think means the angry, enraged sheep. If my French is serving. According to data, so in other words, it comes from the angry sheep. And this...
Well, that must be a good source.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is how, again, like it's, all of these hoaxes are starting with a fear that people have.
Right.
And, transmuting it itself. So anyway, be vigilant.
I heard that garlic can cure COVID-19. Is that true?
No.
No, it just keeps you further away from people.
Exactly.
Your breath gets
like
really
COVID-19, we were saying before, is a vampire that you must keep away from.
Yeah.
Generally, you got it. I mean, all we're really saying is be vigilant. And I had an example of this about gossip from a play that I think illustrates it really, really well.
Go ahead, read that.
This is from a play called Doubt, a Parable by John Patrick Shanley. And the parable is that a woman was incredibly sorry that she was gossiping and went to her priest and confessed. And the priest said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home, take a pillow up on your roof, cut it open with a knife, and return here to me. So she went home, took a pillow on her roof, a knife from the drawer, took the fire escape to the roof, and stabbed the pillow. She went back to the priest as instructed. The priest said, did you cut the pillow with a knife? Yes, Father. And what was the result? Feathers, she said. Feathers, he repeated. Feathers everywhere, Father. And the priest said to her, now I want you to go back and gather up every last feather that flew out on the wind. She says, it can't be done. The wind took them all over. And he says, and that is gossip.
Right.
And that's what we're dealing with on the web.
Yep. It kind of just floats and gets out
and
there.
Then it's also one little thing. We got one little thing. You say, oh, I didn't know, Morgan she just sleeps all day long. I heard, and now all of a sudden, there it is.
Yeah.
It's out there like a little feather.
Yeah.
So it's just keep it in mind. We really, really, really do try to keep the facts going to everybody, but it is really hard in a world where we have to continually check everything, which we do, and against all these myths that, clearly people are using it for influence, making money, et cetera.
A lot of different things. So check your sources, folks.
Oh, and so on the slates, I have a bunch of different really great fact-check websites.
Where you can go to check to see if something is a
and you should
rumor
check
or
them
not.
against each other.
Yep.
Check them.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
We have Peter Van Scoyoc, though.
Yeah, we do have Peter. Peter will be coming up next. I'll be talking with him, and he'll give us more of the ultra-local that we're used to, news on that. So we'll save that and see what direction this town is going in terms of dealing with the open beaches and things like that. So we'd like to thank our sponsor, Sound Aircraft Services, as usual, and the East Hampton Town Board, the LGB Board of Directors, and once again, if you want to support Facts at 5, you may just send me an email at facts at ltveh.org. So stay tuned for Peter and I. Have a good night. This is Michael Clark, and I'm back again with East Hampton Town Supervisor Peter Van Scoyoc. Welcome, Peter.
Hi, Michael. It's great being back on the show. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you've been rocking and rolling these days, so it's been a little crazy. But, I just wanted to talk about for a moment, Peter, if we could. There's a lot of numbers thrown around, and a lot of times we lose fact of those numbers are associated with human beings and people. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the human factor that's involved, and maybe what you're doing to keep the faith.
Right. Well, as everyone knows, this has hit not just East Hampton and Long Island, but this is happening all around the entire world right now. And it's meant that communities have had to shut down their economies, restrict their travel and being out and about. And, that's had a lot of repercussions throughout the economy. There are a lot of people who are now unemployed. They find themselves unemployed, hardworking people, and that's made it difficult and stressful. In addition to, concerns about the actual virus, there's economic impacts, and we're seeing that ripple through our community. Some people can work remotely from home, but many sectors of the economy have been shut down. Restaurants, bars, and taverns, for instance, aren't actually able to have indoor dining or have patrons come and visit their locations. Some are trying to get by with takeout, but that's an incredibly difficult thing to switch your business model like that. It means that, a number of people have been laid off. So, we've been concerned about that right from the beginning, and our Human Services Department has really been in full gear ever since the pandemic and the New York pause really came into being. We shut down our senior citizen activities back in March, I think the 11th of March. 2 days later, I declared a state of emergency, and we had our first cases here in town. That's been something that we provided meals for seniors. We've had a senior nutritional program, but just for the month of March alone, we did 1,049 meals for our seniors. Last month, this past month, April, 5,291. So we've served over 6,300 meals to seniors since the closure on March 11th, which is really a phenomenal, I think, response. In addition to providing those meals for seniors, we've also are calling those on our client list weekly, and in some cases where people are feeling particularly isolated, they're getting daily phone calls from staff. We think it's really important to take care of our seniors and those in need, and there are a number of food pantries within the town. We have people who struggle with food security in a normal year due to the seasonal nature of our economy, that many hardworking people find that their jobs are not active in the off-season months, and they take advantage of the availability of food through our food pantries, and we've seen those numbers skyrocket as well. For instance, the number of individuals who in January, before this crisis really struck locally, in the Montauk Food Pantry, they served about 403 people. This last week in April here, 854. So more than double the number of people who are experiencing food insecurity, and we're seeing that rise. Springs Food Pantry for this past April 29th, they distributed to 206 families, which represents 707 people. There are so many dedicated volunteers with our food pantries and other charitable organizations who at this time have really stepped up and it's really comforting to see those with resources bringing them to bear for those who are in most in need. And so that's a wonderful thing. But I think we really need to still focus on protecting our community, making sure the basic needs of our members of our community are being met. And at the same time, we're seeing the numbers decline due to everybody's efforts. The public has responded and taken this very seriously to heart for the most part. And because of us staying indoors and making sure we're washing our hands and wearing face coverings or masks when we go out in public, we've seen a sharp decline now in the disease. I think right now we're beyond the initial peak of the disease. It took us about a month or so to get to this point, to the peak. It's likely to take a similar amount of time to really get back to where the numbers are really quite low. But we're going to be in a situation where we're going to need to continue to practice social distancing for the foreseeable future. We're going to have to change the way that we interact and live. We're still going to need face coverings going out in public, and people are going to have to be diligent about sanitizing surfaces and keeping their hands clean and whatnot, so that we don't see a resurgence. Because I don't think any of us want to go back through, the isolation and the economic shutdown. So as we open up, we need to do so in a responsible and careful manner.
Yeah, so that kind of leads to the question, like, what is your vision? Like, how do you see the beach situation, expanding out? What's going to happen with that, do you think?
So I think the basic thing to keep in mind is that this disease thrives on density and proximity. And we've seen, New York City, which is probably the most densely populated city in the United States, being most hard hit. We have a small community and density here in terms of building and whatnot is very low. That's partially responsible for the reason that our rates of infection here have been lower than the rest of Long Island. It also, I think, is partially due to the fact that we were very aggressive very early, ahead of most of the other communities on Long Island, in shutting down locations that would have been ripe for communicating the disease into large numbers, like the YMC Rec Center, the Senior Center, and other such facilities. That Montauk Friends of Erin agreed to not go forward with their parade just as this was sort of unwinding. And so, I think those kind of steps have really helped as well. But that being said, so densities is part of it, and proximity. And then when you're in closer contact, you obviously need to be wearing a face covering. So I think that we can have a rollout of being able to use our beaches this summer with some normalcy, if we can get to a point of separating ourselves. And that presents a number of challenges. But I think we can do it if we work together and are responsible about it. So our beaches are available currently for those who want to walk on them. I don't know how the summer is going to go regarding life-guarded swim areas. That's something we're certainly looking at. It presents a number of other challenges, which we're looking to try and overcome. And this is all evolving, and every step that we take really has to be with a sharp eye on the progress we're making against the disease. If we start seeing a resurgence, we may have to pull back and become more restrictive. I'd like to see us making steady progress forward without having to pull back. But that's really going to, I think, rely heavily on how well the general public really follows the protocols.
So you are obviously in close communication with your fellow supervisors in other towns and things like that. How's that going? Because I read something this morning on 27 East that kind of alluded to the fact that you and Jay Schneiderman it was actually, they said the word opposing views, and then as I read the article, I didn't really see it as that at all. But on beach reopenings, right? but how is that going? Like communicating, they were saying that if East Hampton closes beaches, then the people would then go to Southampton. I don't think it's really that simple, but what's your view on that?
Well, first of all, nothing's that simple.
Yeah, we got that.
In these times, absolutely nothing's that simple. I will say that throughout the entire crisis, I am on a daily call with the county executive and the regional representative of the governor, and I'm on a call with the supervisors in Suffolk. And then we have our Supervisors Association, which has been meeting, which is the 13 towns. We had a Zoom press conference today talking about our cooperation with each other to really work through these various issues that in some degree we all face in common. This disease really has no borders. And we're stronger if we work together. So I have to say that at every turn, from the governor right on down to the village mayors and town supervisors, everybody has been working very cooperatively together, sharing information and ideas how to approach this. So, it's really great seeing representatives put everything else aside, whatever differences there may be, and really focus on doing the best for our communities. What it means in terms of how we work together, I think we've identified that we'd like to try to figure out if there's some uniform kind of guidelines or procedures that we could follow amongst all the various communities. And you alluded to, if one town's more restrictive, then people who want to go take advantage of the beach might go to some other beach. I mean, there is some concern with that. Honestly, we have concern right now with people from other communities traveling here because we're less dense and we have more open space available. That makes us very popular in a regular summer season, but we're just as popular now because of that fact. We've done so much to protect against development and reduce density. That's made us even more popular now. So, there are a lot of challenges that will go along with that. But as much as we can have a unified approach, I think that's great. Obviously, each community is very unique. We're not like Southampton. We have some similarities, but, myself and the town board are going to work towards meeting our residents' needs, I think, first. I'd love to be able to get back to a point where we could invite tourists to come visit. We're not there yet.
No, I was on your call yesterday, and there was a boat captain came on and was speaking with you. And
yeah, Tom Cusmano. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had no idea that you were a former boat captain.
I'm still a boat captain. I've had my captain's license now for, I think, 36 years. I just did my 5-year renewal last year. And I ran a charter boat in Montauk for a dozen years.
So that's that's near and dear to your heart, I guess. The plight of the fishermen there, and I thought he was very well spoken in terms of the way that he positioned himself, and the concerns of some of the people out in the Montauk area about because Montauk's you just said that East Hampton is unique. Is different from Southampton, but I think Montauk is unique within East Hampton even, right? And it's destination. What's that?
Absolutely. Every hamlet in town has its own character. So you're right about that. So we try to, address the specific concerns within each part of our community and tailor it as directly to their needs and concerns as we can. I reached out to the governor's office and requested additional resources because we were all in winter mode when this hit, and the staffing levels at the state parks were winter staffing levels, and now suddenly we're having summer crowds, and that was causing us, to devote more resources, town resources, towards managing that for the state. And we did get a positive response, and they did up their overtime and increase staffing levels, and they provided more enforcement, and that's increased over the last couple of weeks. And then we found it necessary to implement our summer parking regulations ahead of when we normally would by at least 3 weeks, because now we're starting to see the types of crowds. And we've also done some additional limitations on parking. In Montauk, we've closed Kirk Park lot to all but residents, and we've only left the small portion closest to the IGA available to residents, because we understand there could be overflow needs for parking for the IGA as well.
Right.
Again, we're not trying to encourage people to come out here and visit right now. I think we have enough to manage currently, and but I think most of the people who are actually out here staying, whether they're year-round residents or they're taking advantage of their second home now, have been very responsible and respectful of others in the community. I do just worry about the influx of day tripping out here who may not be as conscientious about our concerns.
Right, absolutely. Well, Peter, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you to you and the town board for all that you folks are doing. I think you're doing a great job, but it's wonderful to see, and so many members of the community coming together. And we'll see you next week at the same time, right? You're going to be on our show every Friday to give us kind of an update at the end of the week. And we appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Well, I'm happy to have the opportunity, and thanks again to LTV for all you're doing to help keep the community informed, and you're running the crawler, letting people know what's going on. And we really appreciate that. Definitely a cornerstone of the community to begin with. And at these difficult times, it's really helpful for everyone and reassuring to be able to get that information out. So thanks again for having me on the show.
Thanks a lot for that, Peter. Have a good day.
Welcome. You too. Be safe. Be well.